100 degrees in March, not July, not August. March, and that number is not a typo, it is not an exaggeration. It is a verified forecast for multiple cities across the Texas Panhandle and the desert Southwest this week. If that does not stop you in your tracks, what I am about to show you in the next 60 seconds will. Because this is not just a heat wave. This is the opening act of a dangerous collision between record-shattering heat, a violent, severe weather outbreak, and a massive pattern flip that is going to reshape the weather map for the entire first half of April. And right now, more than 270 cities across the United States are caught in the middle of it. Here is what I need you to do. Drop a comment right now with your city and state. I am going to give you the most detailed city-by-city breakdown you have seen all season, and I want to make sure your area is covered. If you are watching from Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, or anywhere in between, this video was made for you. But honestly, nobody in the lower 48 is completely off the hook this week, so stay with me. Now, before we get into the specifics, let me give you the roadmap for this video so you know exactly what is coming. In the first section, I am going to walk you through Wednesday's record-breaking heat and the critical fire danger that comes with it. Then, we are going to shift into the Thursday severe weather outbreak, and I am going to give you the exact timing, hour by hour, for when storms hit each region. At the 5-minute mark, I am going to deliver the full 270-plus city temperature breakdown so you can find your city and know exactly what to expect. And then, in the final section, I am going to reveal the massive April pattern flip that our models are now screaming about, and why it sets the stage for a multi-week severe weather season that could rival some of the most active stretches we have seen in years. The best part of this entire video comes at around the 8-minute mark when I show you exactly how this pattern flip creates a collision between Arctic air and Gulf moisture that turns the central United States into a storm factory. Do not skip ahead. Everything builds on what comes before it. Let us start with tomorrow, Wednesday, March 25th, and I need you to understand how extreme this situation is. We are not talking about a pleasant warm spell. We are talking about temperatures running 20 to 30 degrees above normal across a massive swath of the country. Amarillo, Texas is forecast to hit 94 degrees. That is not a summer afternoon. That is a late March Wednesday, and it gets more shocking the farther north you go. Central Nebraska is looking at 89 degrees. 89. In Nebraska, in March. Aberdeen, South Dakota, a city where winter usually still has a firm grip this time of year, is pushing into the upper 70s. Bismarck, North Dakota, 72 degrees. Minneapolis, Minnesota, 73 degrees tomorrow afternoon. Now here is the number that should make every weather enthusiast sit up straight. North Platte, Nebraska could hit 90 degrees tomorrow or Thursday. If it does, it will shatter a record that has stood since 1907. Let me say that again. 1907. That record has survived world wars, dust bowls, and over a century of climate variability. And it might fall this week, but temperature is only half the story. And this is where things get genuinely dangerous. When you combine that intense heat with relative humidity levels plummeting down near 10%, and then you layer on wind gusts of 30 to 50 miles per hour, you get a textbook recipe for catastrophic wildfire conditions. The National Weather Service has issued widespread red flag warnings across Wyoming, western Nebraska, and southwestern South Dakota. Fire weather watches have been extended into the Oklahoma and Texas panhandles, including Oklahoma City and Tulsa, and as far south as Wichita Falls. The most volatile window opens late Wednesday morning and peaks through the afternoon and early evening hours. Here is why. A deepening area of low pressure is sitting on the lee side of the Rocky Mountains, and it is acting like a giant fan. It is pulling hot, bone-dry air straight off the desert southwest and blasting it out across the plains. That air is arriving with almost no moisture in it. We are talking about relative humidity in the single digits in some areas, and the wind is not letting up. I am most concerned about the western sandhills of Nebraska and the eastern slopes of the Wind River Mountains in Wyoming. This is where the strongest wind gusts are going to overlap with the driest fuels. This region is already suffering from extreme drought conditions. Vegetation is completely dried out. It is ready to burn. And there are already active fires in this area. If a new fire sparks tomorrow under these conditions, it will spread out of control almost instantly. If you live anywhere in that critical risk zone, from the Wyoming border down through the Nebraska sandhills and into the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas, make sure you have a go bag packed. Make sure your evacuation plan is ready. Know your routes. Keep your phone charged. And keep an eye on local alerts all day Wednesday and into Wednesday evening. Now, I want to take a breath here and pivot to something important because while the plains are dealing with fire danger and extreme heat, the rest of the country is seeing a wide variety of conditions. And I promised you a full breakdown, so let us go region by region, starting in the Northeast. If you are in New England, you woke up this morning to chilly conditions, and honestly, it still feels more like winter than spring. Boston is sitting at 40 degrees right now, Portland, Maine, 35. Burlington, Vermont, 41. New York City is at 41 degrees. Hartford, Connecticut, 42. Providence, Rhode Island, 38. These are temperatures that belong in February, not late March. And tonight is going to be cold again. A freeze is expected through the Great Lakes region and into upstate New York. State College, Pennsylvania will drop to 32 degrees tonight. New York City will be around 38. Boston around 34. But here's the twist. Tomorrow, Wednesday, temperatures start climbing. The warm air surging up from the south is going to push 50s all the way into New England and upstate New York by Wednesday afternoon. Virginia and Ohio will see 60s, and by Thursday, Indianapolis and Louisville will be touching 80 degrees. That is a 30 to 40 degree temperature swing in the span of 48 hours. Your body is not going to know what season it is. Now let me take you through the mid-Atlantic. Washington, D.C. is currently at 49 degrees under partly sunny skies. Baltimore, 46, Philadelphia, 49, Wilmington, Delaware, 46, Annapolis, Maryland, 44, Richmond, Virginia, 50. These areas are going to warm up nicely through midweek, but do not get comfortable because by Friday, a powerful cold front is going to slam through and drag temperatures right back down. In the southeast, the picture is more complicated. A wedge of cooler air has been sitting over the Carolinas and Georgia, keeping temperatures below where they should be. Raleigh is at 51, Charlotte 55, Charleston, South Carolina 53, Atlanta is at 67, which is closer to normal, Savannah 55, Jacksonville, Florida is at 59 with fog, but Florida is doing its own thing right now. Miami is at 77 degrees, Fort Lauderdale 78, Tampa 74, Orlando 69 but overcast. Cape Canaveral is dealing with thunder showers, and rain showers are running along the east coast of Florida today and will continue for at least another day. Frost advisories have been issued for coastal North Carolina where temperatures could drop to 35 tonight. That is a frost advisory in a region that is surrounded by cities in the 70s and 80s. Spring in America, everybody. Let us move to the Deep South and the Gulf Coast. Baton Rouge, 81 degrees and sunny. New Orleans, 74. Houston, 79 with broken clouds. San Antonio, 87. Austin, 87. These Texas and Louisiana cities are already feeling like summer, and it is only going to get hotter. By Thursday, temperatures in the Panhandle region of Texas could approach 100 degrees. In fact, one forecast point near Lubbock is showing a potential 100-degree reading, which would set an all-time record for the month of March. Let me put that in perspective. In 50 days since February 1st, the Dallas-Fort Worth area has seen approximately 40 out of 50 days with above-average temperatures. Only about 10 days have been at or below normal. That is an extraordinary stretch of warmth. Now, here is where I need you to pay very close attention if you live in the Midwest, because we are about to transition from talking about heat to talking about something much more volatile. Thursday, March 26th. This is the day that the atmosphere loads the gun and pulls the trigger. A dangerous, severe weather setup is taking shape, and the Storm Prediction Center has already outlined a risk area stretching from Kansas City all the way to the east side of Pittsburgh. The relatively higher risk zone, highlighted at level 2 out of 5, runs from Springfield, Illinois, through Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, Columbus, and down through Cincinnati. 12 million people are in the crosshairs. Here is the hour-by-hour timing, and this is what you need to write down or screenshot. Early Thursday morning between 6 and 9 a.m. Eastern, an initial batch of rain and dying thunderstorms will move through the Midwest. This is not the main event. This is the appetizer. And honestly, this early morning activity is both a blessing and a curse. It is a blessing because it could weaken the atmosphere and limit severe potential later, but it is a curse because if the sun breaks through after these morning storms clear out, the atmosphere will reload with energy and the afternoon setup becomes even more dangerous. Late Thursday afternoon between 4 and 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 to 4 p.m. Central. This is when the real action begins. A strong cold front will come slicing through the region. As it crashes into the unseasonably warm and humid air mass that has been pulled north by a powerful low-level jet stream, explosive thunderstorm development is expected. We are talking about 40 to 50 knots of deep layer wind shear. That is the kind of shear that creates rotating storms capable of producing large hail and tornadoes. Thursday evening between 7 and 10 p.m. Eastern, 6 to 9 p.m. Central. The storms rapidly intensify and begin pushing eastward and southeastward. This is the peak danger window. I am particularly concerned about the corridor from Peoria, Illinois through Indianapolis and on to Dayton, Ohio. This is where atmospheric energy and wind shear overlap almost perfectly. And here's the worst part. This is when many of these storms will hit populated areas, and it will be after dark. Nighttime severe weather is the most dangerous kind because people are asleep, they cannot see the storms coming, and they are less likely to take immediate action. Late Thursday night into early Friday morning between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. Eastern. Even if the initial storms start as individual supercells with rotating updrafts, by this time they are expected to merge into a fast-moving squall line. When that happens, the primary threat shifts from hail and tornadoes to widespread, damaging straight-line winds. However, do not let your guard down. Spin-up tornadoes are still possible within squall lines, and they can be just as deadly. This activity will eventually push through the Pittsburgh area and toward the eastern seaboard before decaying as Friday morning arrives. Now, alongside the severe weather threat, there is a significant flash flooding danger. The upper-level winds are going to be running parallel to the advancing cold front. What that means in plain language is that thunderstorms are going to train over the exact same locations, like cars on a train track. One storm forms, moves along, and the next one forms right behind it in the same spot. Parts of Ohio, Indiana, eastern Illinois, and northern Kentucky need to be watching for this. Rainfall totals of 2 to 4 inches are likely in a narrow stripe from Pittsburgh back to Springfield, Illinois. But when you get thunderstorms training over the same area, those numbers can double or even triple. And here is the catch. Despite recent rains, the overall soil moisture across much of this region is still low due to ongoing drought conditions. That hardened, dry soil is going to repel water rather than absorb it, which means even moderate rainfall could trigger flash flooding. The Weather Prediction Center has issued a marginal risk of excessive rainfall for portions of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. It is only a level 1 risk right now, but I am bringing it up because there will likely be flash flood warnings, and I do not want anyone to be caught off guard. If you live anywhere from Chicago down to Cincinnati, your Thursday evening commute and overnight hours just became significantly more dangerous. Make sure you have multiple ways to receive severe weather warnings that will actually wake you up if you are asleep. A weather radio. Wireless emergency alerts on your phone, a weather app with push notifications. Have them all active, know where your safe room is, and if you are in a mobile home, identify a sturdy structure nearby where you can take shelter. Now, I promised you the full city-by-city temperature breakdown, and I always keep my promises. So here it is. More than 270 cities across the United States. I am going to go through these methodically by region. Find your city, write down your temperature, and if your city is not on this list, drop it in the comments and I will get you covered. Starting with the Southwest and the extreme heat zone. Phoenix, Arizona, 96 degrees and passing clouds. This is pushing toward all-time March records. The forecast for tomorrow is even worse, with 101 degrees possible, which would break the all-time March record for Phoenix. Tucson, 95. Scottsdale, 95. Mesa, 94. Chandler, 95. Glendale, Arizona, 94. Tempe, 96. Goodyear, 97. Buckeye, 97. Surprise, 96. Bullhead City, 99. Laughlin, Nevada, 99. That is 1 degree shy of triple digits and nearly to the point where records start falling. Las Vegas, 92. North Las Vegas, 94. Paradise, Nevada, 95. Sunrise Manor, 96. Palm Springs, California, 93. Joshua Tree, 95. 29 Palms, 95. Indio, 92. Coachella, 92. El Centro, 94. Calexico, 94. Borrego Springs, 92. Ridgecrest, 92. Hesperia, 91. Victorville, 91. Lancaster, California, 90. Palmdale, 89. Now moving into Southern California, where it is hot, but not quite as extreme. Los Angeles is at 72 degrees and sunny. Hollywood, 82. Burbank, 82. Glendale, California, 82, Pasadena, 82, Anaheim, 75, Santa Ana, 70, Irvine, 70, Long Beach, 72, Torrance, 70, San Diego, 68, Riverside, 87, San Bernardino, 87, Rancho Cucamonga, 87, Ontario, California, 87, Pomona, 85, Corona, 85, Moreno Valley, 88, Redlands, 91, Banning, 88, Santa Barbara, 64, Santa Monica, 67, Thousand Oaks, 69, Simi Valley, 83, Santa Clarita, 83, Bakersfield, 84, Fresno, 85, moving up through Central and Northern California, Sacramento, 84, Stockton, 85, Modesto, 86, San Jose, 79, San Francisco, 77, Oakland, 74, Fremont, 77, Sunnyvale, 79, Santa Rosa, 81, Napa, 77, Concord, 82, Walnut Creek, 82, Livermore, 82, Pleasanton, 82, Chico, 82, Redding, 79, Marysville, 86, Visalia, 83. These are temperatures that belong in June, not March. Now over to Texas, and this is where the heat really intensifies. Dallas, 82 degrees, Fort Worth, 82, Arlington, 83, Plano, 78, Garland, 82, Irving, 82, McKinney, 78, Frisco area, around 78, Houston, 79, San Antonio, 87, Austin, 87, El Paso, 91, Corpus Christi, 80, Laredo, 92, McAllen, 90, Brownsville, 81, Lubbock, 85, Amarillo, 84, Waco, 84, Killeen, 84, Temple, 86, Midland, 91, Odessa, 91, San Angelo, 90, Abilene, 87, Wichita Falls, 87, Tyler, 80, Longview, 79, Beaumont, 75, and Junction, Texas, which is the hot spot of the entire country right now, 109 degrees. That is not a misprint. 109 degrees in Central Texas in March. The Oklahoma and Kansas corridor. Oklahoma City, 77. Tulsa, 69. Norman area, around 77. Wichita, 73. Topeka, 69. Kansas City, 64 on both the Missouri and Kansas sides. Stillwater, 76. Enid, 78. Lawton area, around 79. The Rockies and Mountain West. Denver, 79 degrees and partly sunny. Colorado Springs, 75. Boulder, 75. Fort Collins, 80. Pueblo, 84. Grand Junction, 84. Aspen, 72. Salt Lake City, 80. Provo, 82. Boise, 74. Billings, 70. Helena, 67. Missoula, 62. Casper, 74. Cheyenne, 72. Rapid City, 66. At Denver specifically, temperatures over the past 50 days look nearly identical to Dallas, roughly 40 out of 50 days above normal. Denver hit 86 degrees last Saturday, which was an all-time record for the month of March, and tomorrow could challenge that again. The Northern Plains, Minneapolis 52 today, but forecast to climb to 73 tomorrow. That is a massive jump. Fargo 52, Sioux Falls 60, Bismarck 54, Pierre 65, Aberdeen 56 today, upper 70s tomorrow, Omaha 62, Lincoln 69, Des Moines 60. These cities are going to experience whiplash when the cold front crashes through on Friday and drops temperatures 20 degrees or more. The Midwest, where severe weather is heading. Chicago, 52 and broken clouds. Indianapolis, 54. Columbus, Ohio, 49. Cincinnati, 53. Detroit, 44. Milwaukee, 43. St. Louis, 62. Springfield, Illinois, 61. Peoria, 57. Dayton, 51. Fort Wayne, 48. Grand Rapids, 45. Madison, 51. Rockford, 53. Champaign, 56. Bloomington, Illinois, 56. Evansville 60, Terre Haute 57. These temperatures are about to surge Thursday into the 70s and 80s ahead of the cold front, and that warmth is exactly the fuel that the severe thunderstorms need. The Northeast and New England. New York City 41, Brooklyn 41, Queens 42, Newark 41, Jersey City 41, Philadelphia 49, Pittsburgh 44, Boston 40, Providence 38. Hartford, 42. New Haven, 41. Albany, 43. Syracuse, 39. Rochester, 38. Buffalo, 32 and overcast. Portland, Maine, 35. Burlington, Vermont, 41. Concord, New Hampshire, 46. Manchester, New Hampshire, 44. Bridgeport, 42. Stamford, 42. White Plains, 42. Trenton, 45. Allentown, 44. Scranton 43, Wilkes-Barre 43, Erie 36, State College 45, the Southeast, Atlanta 67, Nashville 65, Memphis 64, Charlotte 55, Raleigh 51, Knoxville 61, Chattanooga 69, Birmingham 71, Huntsville 67, Montgomery 74, Jackson, Mississippi 74, Savannah 55, Charleston, South Carolina 53, Columbia, South Carolina 59, Macon 65, Augusta, Georgia 60, Greenville, South Carolina 60, Asheville 54, Wilmington, North Carolina 48, Tallahassee 73, Pensacola 70, Mobile 70. These numbers look mild, but remember, a cold wedge has been suppressing temperatures in the Carolinas and parts of Georgia. By Friday, when the warm air finally surges in, South Carolina and Georgia could be pushing near 90 degrees. Florida, Miami 77, Fort Lauderdale 78, West Palm Beach 78, Tampa 74, St. Petersburg 74, Orlando 69 and overcast, Jacksonville 59 with fog, Clearwater 73, Sarasota 71, Fort Myers 76, Naples 73, Cape Coral 76, Key West 78, Daytona Beach 68, Melbourne 72, Kissimmee 73, Lakeland 75, Port St. Lucie 79, Boca Raton 79, Pembroke Pines 81. Florida is seeing thunder showers along the Space Coast, with Cape Canaveral and Cocoa Beach both reporting thunderstorm activity mixed with partly sunny skies at 73 degrees. The Pacific Northwest, Seattle 55 and mostly cloudy, Portland, Oregon 55, Tacoma 53 with light rain, Bellingham 56, Olympia 52 with light rain and fog, Salem 54 with rain, Eugene 55 with fog, Spokane 49 with light rain, Bend 61. The Pacific Northwest is dealing with its own weather event. An atmospheric river is pushing moisture into the region. Winter weather advisories have been issued for the northern Washington Cascades starting tonight and continuing through Wednesday and into Wednesday night. Above 2,000 feet, a few inches of snow are expected, and above 4,000 feet, accumulations could reach up to a foot. Stevens Pass on U.S. Route 2 is affected. Wind advisories are in effect for portions of southern Oregon with gusts up to 55 miles per hour. Alaska. Anchorage, 27 degrees and sunny. Fairbanks, 25. Juneau, 34. Kodiak, 31. Prudhoe Bay, negative 15. Point Hope, 5 degrees. Kotzebue, 0. Arctic Village, 13. Wind advisories are in effect around the Wasilla area with northeast gusts reaching 55 miles per hour. Now, let me pull all of this together because here is the big picture that most people are missing. And this is the part I told you about at the beginning, the section at the 8-minute mark that ties everything together. When that powerful cold front sweeps through the Midwest on Thursday and pushes off the East Coast by Friday, it is going to drag down a shocking blast of winter reality. Temperatures are going to plummet 10 to 20 degrees below average from the Great Lakes into New England. Strong cold air advection from gusty northerly winds is going to aggressively undercut the lingering moisture left behind the front, and we might actually see a few places transition from rain to a messy wintry mix and wet snow from the upper peninsula of Michigan through portions of New England. While this fast-moving system will not dump a lot of snow anywhere, it could make travel slick on Friday across the northern United States and into the Northeast. Detroit, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, these areas could see temperatures crash from the 70s on Thursday back into the 30s and 40s by Friday morning. That kind of swing is hard on infrastructure, hard on agriculture, and hard on people. But here is where the real plot twist comes in, and this is what I have been building toward this entire video. Every single weather model we are tracking right now is screaming the same thing. A massive nationwide pattern flip is coming in the first week of April. And when I say massive, I mean the kind of shift that rewrites the weather story for the entire country. Here is what is going to happen. A deep anomalous trough is going to dig into the West Coast. This trough is going to replace the record heat that has been baking the western states with sharply colder air. If you are in the desert Southwest and you have been dealing with near-record temperatures in the 90s and low hundreds, relief is finally on the way. But that is only half of the equation, because as the west cools down, the heat is going to shift east. Much above average temperatures are expected across the Appalachian Mountains, the southeast, and into the mid-Atlantic region in the 8 to 14-day outlook. The only holdout is northern New England, particularly Maine, where below normal temperatures look like they are going to persist for the foreseeable future. Now here is the part that should grab your attention. As this trough digs into the west, it is going to open up the Gulf of Mexico like a faucet. Rich tropical moisture is going to come streaming back into the central United States. And as multiple short waves eject out ahead of the main trough, they are going to interact with that moisture in a way that kicks off a multi-day severe weather threat. This severe weather threat is expected to ramp up between April 1st and April 5th as the main trough finally starts to swing through the plains and into the Mississippi Valley, and I need you to understand the difference between what we are about to see and what has been happening recently. The severe weather events we have been getting, like Thursday's set up in Ohio and Indiana, those have been more of a summer pattern, lines of storms moving from northwest to southeast. What is coming in April is something different. We are talking about a return of traditional spring severe weather, the kind with warm, moist air surging north from the Gulf, clashing with cold air, dropping south from Canada, and jet stream energy providing the spin. This is the classic setup that produces the most significant severe weather outbreaks in the Central Plains. Experimental model output from Northern Illinois University, which tracks accumulated supercell potential, is already lighting up for the period from March 31st through April 6th. The area with the highest signal stretches from Texas through Oklahoma, Missouri, back into Illinois and Indiana, and into parts of the Deep South. And the signal continues, though weaker, into the following week from April 7th through April 13th, bleeding a bit to the north and east. Now, I want to be very clear about something. This does not mean tornadoes are guaranteed. Supercell potential is exactly what it sounds like. It is the potential for the type of storms that can produce severe weather. But when you combine that potential with the jet stream pattern, the moisture return, and the temperature contrasts that our models are showing, the ingredients are all there for a very active period. Let me walk you through the temperature side of this pattern change so you can see how it unfolds. Thursday, March 26th. The blues on the temperature map fade from the Midwest as warmth surges into the center of the country. By Thursday evening, you will notice temperatures in the 80s as far north as Indianapolis. Meanwhile, the desert Southwest is still closing in on the century mark, with southern Arizona sitting near 100 degrees Friday, March 27th. The cold front slams through. High temperatures crash back into the 30s and 40s from Detroit to Pittsburgh to Syracuse, but the extreme southeast and southwest are still baking. Saturday and Sunday, March 28th and 29th, Palm Sunday weekend. It gets even colder in the northern tier. But then, as we approach the last day or two of March and transition into April, everything changes again. The warmth comes surging back. Amarillo heating up again. Wichita climbing. Even Des Moines pushing near 70. All of that Gulf warmth surging northward is going to be the fuel. And when the cooler air from the Pacific Northwest and Canada comes sliding back down to interact with it, you get the setup for that multi-week, potentially widespread severe weather pattern. This is the kind of pattern that keeps meteorologists up at night. Not because any single day looks catastrophic, but because the atmosphere stays loaded and active for an extended period. Day after day, the ingredients keep refreshing. Cold air comes down, warm air surges up, they collide, storms fire, the atmosphere resets, and then it happens again. That is what we are looking at for the first 1 to 2 weeks of April. Now let me explain why this pattern flip is so significant compared to what we have been experiencing. For most of March, the jet stream has been running in a relatively zonal pattern across the northern United States. That means it has been flowing mostly west to east without a lot of big dips and ridges. That setup keeps the warmth locked in the south and west and keeps the cold air bottled up in Canada. It is why we have been seeing these relentless above-average temperatures across the plains and the southwest. But what happens in April is fundamentally different. The jet stream is going to amplify. Think of it like a river that has been running straight, suddenly developing massive curves and bends. A deep trough digs into the west coast, and a corresponding ridge builds over the eastern half of the country. That amplified pattern creates huge temperature contrasts across short distances. You might have 70s in Oklahoma and 30s in Colorado on the same day. And it is those sharp temperature gradients that are the primary fuel for severe weather. Here is another piece of the puzzle that makes the April setup so concerning. When that trough digs into the west, it does two things simultaneously. First, it opens the door for Pacific moisture to flood into the mountain west and eventually the plains. Second, and this is the critical part, it opens the Gulf of Mexico like a faucet. Warm, moisture-laden air from the Gulf starts streaming northward at the lower levels of the atmosphere. That low-level jet stream can carry incredible amounts of moisture and energy northward, sometimes all the way from the Gulf Coast up to Iowa and Illinois in a matter of hours. Now, when you have rich Gulf moisture surging north at the surface, and you have strong jet stream winds aloft, and you have cold air trying to push south from Canada, you get what meteorologists call a loaded atmosphere. All it takes is a trigger, a cold front, a dry line, an outflow boundary from earlier storms, and the atmosphere explodes into severe thunderstorms. And in April, those triggers come frequently. Every few days, a new shortwave disturbance ejects out of the main trough and provides exactly that kind of trigger. That is why I am talking about a multi-week severe weather pattern, not just a single-day event. The ingredients are going to be persistently available, the triggers are going to keep coming, and the geography of the central United States, with its flat terrain and warm Gulf to the south, is perfectly designed to channel all of these ingredients together. I want to share a comparison that might help put this in perspective. Think about the difference between a single thunderstorm on a summer afternoon and a sustained severe weather outbreak. A single thunderstorm might last an hour and affect a few counties. What we are looking at for April is more like a conveyor belt of severe weather potential that stretches across multiple states and refreshes itself every 2 to 3 days. Some days will be quieter than others. Some days the cap might hold and storms might not fire at all. But the potential is going to be there day after day, and when it does fire, it could fire big. The experimental ensemble data from Northern Illinois University that I mentioned earlier is particularly interesting when you look at the spatial coverage. For the period from March 31st through April 6th, the accumulated supercell parameter is elevated across a huge area from the Texas-Oklahoma border all the way northeast through Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and into parts of the Deep South, including Mississippi and Alabama. That is a lot of real estate under the gun. And then for the following week, April 7th through the 13th, the signal shifts slightly north and east but remains present. That suggests the pattern is not going to break down quickly. It is going to evolve, shift, and continue producing opportunities for severe weather across the central and eastern United States for at least 2 weeks. Now, I do not want anyone to panic about this. Severe weather in April is normal. It happens every year. The Plain States and the Mississippi Valley see thunderstorms every spring. What makes this particular setup noteworthy is the combination of factors: the strength of the trough, the amount of available moisture, the sharp temperature contrasts, and the duration of the pattern. All of those factors together suggest that this could be a more active than average period. That does not mean every day will produce tornadoes. It means the atmosphere is going to be primed for severe weather more often than usual. And when storms do fire, they will have a lot of energy to work with. The best thing you can do right now is make sure your severe weather plan is up to date. Know where your safe room is. Make sure your weather radio has fresh batteries. Download a reliable weather app if you have not already. And if you live in a mobile home or manufactured housing, identify the nearest sturdy structure where you can take shelter during a tornado warning. These are the basics, but you would be amazed how many people have not thought about them since last spring. And I have to mention this, a strong California storm system is also expected for midweek next week. This could bring another atmospheric river event to the West Coast, with possible return of winter storm warnings in the Sierra Nevada mountains. So even as the West cools down from this current heat wave, it is not going to be quiet. It is going to be stormy. For ski resorts in the Sierras, this could be a late-season bonus. For travelers on Interstate 80 and other mountain passes, it could mean delays in chain controls. Keep an eye on California forecasts next week if you have any travel plans through the mountains. One more thing about the April pattern that I think is important. The model that shows the next Pacific system crossing the Rockies at the very end of the extended forecast period, around the second week of April, suggests that we could see severe weather potential in Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas on roughly a weekly cycle. System comes through, firestorms, clears out, the atmosphere reloads, and the next system comes through and does it all over again. That cyclical pattern is classic springtime plains weather, and it is exactly what the models are projecting. Let me also touch on something that has been nagging at a lot of people, and I think it deserves to be addressed. Is this the new normal? Over the past 50 days since February 1st, both Dallas, Fort Worth, and Denver have seen roughly 40 out of 50 days with above-average temperatures. Denver set an all-time March temperature record last Saturday at 86 degrees. Phoenix is threatening to break its all-time March record this week. The heat has been relentless and persistent. I am not going to pretend to have a definitive answer about whether this is permanent or cyclical, but it is worth thinking about, and it is worth paying attention to. What I can tell you is that the data speaks for itself. When you see 40 out of 50 days running above normal, that is not a random fluctuation. That is a sustained signal. Whether it continues into April will depend heavily on how this pattern flip plays out. Now, I told you at the beginning that I would end with a teaser for what is coming next. And here it is. Our models are showing that the end of the first week of April brings yet another system. A combination of a strong Canadian air mass dropping south and meeting a Pacific storm system crossing the Rockies. This could trigger severe weather in Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas around the second Thursday of April. We are already seeing the early signals. If that verifies, we could be looking at back-to-back weeks of significant severe weather across the central United States. I am going to have a full deep dive on that setup in the next video as soon as our high-resolution models come into range. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss it, because early indications suggest that second wave could be even more potent than what we are tracking right now. Before I let you go, let me give you the key takeaways one more time because I know this was a lot of information. Number 1. Wednesday, March 25th, record-breaking heat and critical fire danger across the Central Plains and Rockies. Red flag warnings in effect for Wyoming, western Nebraska, southwestern South Dakota, and the Oklahoma and Texas panhandles. Winds gusting 30 to 50 miles per hour with humidity near 10%. North Platte, Nebraska could break a record that has stood since 1907. Number 2, Thursday, March 26th, severe weather outbreak from Kansas City to Pittsburgh. The highest risk area runs from Springfield, Illinois through Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, Columbus, and Cincinnati. Storms initiate late Thursday afternoon, peak during the evening hours, and continue into early Friday morning. All hazards possible, including large hail, damaging winds, and a few tornadoes. Flash flooding threat from training thunderstorms. Most storms will hit populated areas after dark. Number 3, Friday, March 27th. A dramatic temperature crash as cold air floods in behind the front. Temperatures dropping 10 to 20 degrees below average across the Great Lakes and into New England. Possible wintry mix and slick roads in some northern areas. Number 4, late March into early April. A massive pattern flip is coming. The west cools down, the east warms up. Gulf moisture returns to the central United States. The stage is set for a multi-week severe weather pattern beginning around April 1st and potentially lasting through mid-April. Traditional spring severe weather is returning to the forecast. If you are just joining us, please scroll back up and find your city in the 270-plus city breakdown. If I missed your city, put it in the comments and I will make sure to include it in the next update. And one more thing. I mentioned the timing earlier, but let me repeat it because this is life and death information for some of you. If you live in central Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, or anywhere in that corridor, your highest risk window on Thursday is between 4 p.m. and midnight Eastern Time. Have your safe room identified, have your emergency kit ready, have your phone charged with weather alerts turned on. And if you are in a mobile home, please identify a sturdier structure where you can take shelter before the storms arrive. Do not wait until warnings are issued to make a plan. Make the plan now. Drop your city in the comments. Share this with someone who lives in the affected areas. And I will see you in the next video where we break down that April severe weather pattern in full detail. The models are showing something I have not seen in a while, and I cannot wait to walk you through it. Stay safe out there. And here is one last detail I want to leave you with. That atmospheric river hitting the Pacific Northwest right now, the integrated vapor transport values are pushing up to 800. That is a substantial moisture plume. Winter weather advisories in the Cascades, potential for a foot of snow above 4,000 feet, and gale warnings off the coast near Yakutat, Alaska, with seas building to 13 feet. The Pacific is not sleeping. It is gearing up. And what happens in the Pacific this week directly feeds into what happens across the entire country next week. The atmosphere is a connected machine. Every piece moves every other piece. And right now, all the pieces are moving toward an incredibly active stretch of weather. Keep your eyes open, keep your plans flexible, and keep watching, because this story is just getting started. Before this video wraps up, I want to give you an expanded look at some of the cities I have not covered yet, because if you are watching from a smaller city or a less commonly mentioned area, your weather matters just as much as anyone else's. In the Appalachian region, Asheville, North Carolina is at 54 degrees, Knoxville 61, Chattanooga 69, Huntington, West Virginia 55, Charleston, West Virginia 54, Morgantown 48, Lexington, Kentucky 52, Bowling Green 64, Bristol 55, Roanoke, Virginia 50, Lynchburg 50, Charlottesville 50. These areas are going to see the warm air surge in Thursday before the cold front arrives. Enjoy the warmth while it lasts, because it will not stick around. In the upper Midwest and northern Great Lakes, Duluth, Minnesota 34, Marquette, Michigan 34, Traverse City 39, Green Bay 45, Eau Claire 51, Rochester, Minnesota 50, La Crosse 52, Wausau 47, Iron Mountain 49. These are areas where the contrast between the current chill and the approaching warmth is most dramatic, and that contrast is what powers severe weather. For those of you in the southern plains and Gulf Coast outside of Texas, Shreveport 81, Little Rock 59, Fort Smith 67, Fayetteville, Arkansas 69, Jonesboro area upper 60s, Jackson, Mississippi 74, Hattiesburg 76, Biloxi 71, Gulfport 72, Baton Rouge 81, Lafayette 79, Lake Charles 75. These cities are sitting in the warm sector, and that moisture streaming up through here is the fuel for Thursday's severe weather farther north, out in the Mountain West and Northern Rockies. Bozeman 67, Great Falls 64, Kalispell 45 with light rain, Spokane 49 with rain, Coeur d'Alene 48 with rain, Lewiston, Idaho 54, Elko, Nevada 80, Reno 81, Carson City 81. These are impressive numbers for this time of year. Elko at 80 degrees in late March is remarkable. And for those of you in the coastal areas, Virginia Beach 41, Outer Banks around 40, Myrtle Beach 52, Hilton Head area mid-50s. Savannah 55, St. Augustine 61, Daytona Beach 68. The coastal areas are lagging behind the interior when it comes to warming up, thanks to the cooler ocean waters, but they will catch up by the weekend. I want to circle back one more time to the big picture, because understanding the why behind the weather makes you better prepared for it. Right now, there is a massive subtropical high-pressure system centered over northern Arizona at around 30,000 feet. The polar front jet stream is displaced far to the north in western Canada, with one segment diving into the Great Plains carrying 80-knot winds aloft over Kansas and Oklahoma. That jet stream energy is what will fuel Thursday's severe weather, and the subtropical high is what is keeping the West locked in this extreme heat pattern. When the pattern flips next week, that high-pressure ridge will break down, the jet stream will amplify, a deep trough will carve into the west, and the warmth will redistribute to the east and southeast. It is a classic April pattern change, and the models have high confidence that it is coming. The heat advisories currently in effect for the central California coast, from the Santa Ynez Valley to Santa Maria and all of western San Luis Obispo County, are a reminder that even areas that rarely see extreme heat are getting caught up in this pattern. Temperatures reaching 94 degrees locally in some of those coastal valleys is genuinely unusual. Looking further ahead, the second week of April, from the 7th through the 13th, still shows elevated severe weather potential, though the signal is not as strong as the first week. The area of concern shifts slightly to the north and east. This suggests that the active pattern is not a one-and-done situation. It could persist for 2 weeks or possibly longer. This is the kind of extended active weather pattern that demands sustained attention. You cannot just check the forecast once and assume you are good for the week. Things are going to change day by day, sometimes hour by hour. Bookmark this channel, turn on notifications, and make checking the forecast part of your daily routine for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Thank you for staying with me through this entire breakdown. I know it was a lot of information, but when the weather gets this complex and this potentially dangerous, details matter. Timing matters, and being prepared matters more than anything else. Drop your city in the comments. Tell me what you are seeing out your window right now, and if you found this helpful, share it with your neighbors, your family, your coworkers, because the more people who are informed, the safer we all are. Now, I realize I have covered a tremendous amount of ground, but there are still some cities and regions I want to make sure we touch on because every single person watching deserves to know what is heading their way. Let me take you through some of the mid-size cities that often get overlooked in national forecasts, but where people absolutely need this information, starting with the Ohio Valley in more detail. Zanesville, Ohio, expect upper 40s today, climbing into the 60s by Thursday. Chillicothe, similar story, mid-50s now but warming rapidly. Mansfield, Ohio, 43 degrees. Akron, 43. Canton, 42, Youngstown, 41, Lima, 45, Findlay area, mid-40s. All of these cities are on the northern edge of the severe weather risk for Thursday. You may not be in the bullseye, but you are close enough that any wobble in the storm track could put you right in the path of damaging thunderstorms. Do not let your guard down just because you are on the edge of the highlighted area. Some of the worst damage in severe weather events happens outside the officially outlined risk zones. Moving through Indiana, a state that is squarely in the crosshairs, Terre Haute, 57 degrees right now, Bloomington, Indiana, 58, Muncie, 52, Anderson, 62, Kokomo, 51, Lafayette, 54, Logansport, 48, Elkhart, 47, South Bend, 50. Every single one of these cities should be on high alert Thursday afternoon through Friday morning. The warm air surging ahead of the front is going to push temperatures into the 70s and possibly low 80s across central Indiana. That is jet fuel for thunderstorms, and when that cold front arrives with its 40 to 50 knots of wind shear, the atmosphere is going to erupt. In Illinois, beyond the major cities, Champaign 56, Bloomington 56, Decatur 59, Springfield 61, Peoria 57, Rockford 53, Carbondale 62, Effingham 56, Quincy 60, Galesburg area mid-50s. The corridor from Peoria through Springfield is going to be one of the first areas to see storms initiate Thursday afternoon. If you live along the Interstate 74 or Interstate 55 corridors in central Illinois, you need to have your plan in place before noon on Thursday. Once storms start firing, things can escalate quickly. Now let me expand on some areas in the southeast that are going to see significant changes this week. Dothan, Alabama, 73, Tuscaloosa, 70, Huntsville, 67, Florence, Alabama, 71, Meridian, Mississippi area, lower 70s, Tupelo, 68, Columbus, Georgia, 69, Macon, 65, Valdosta, 63, Brunswick area, upper 50s, Thomasville, Georgia, 49, Tifton area, lower 60s. These cities are going to warm considerably by Friday when the warm sector finally overtakes the cooler air that has been wedged over the region. Temperatures near 90 degrees are possible in parts of Georgia and South Carolina by Friday afternoon. That is a taste of summer before April even arrives. For the Carolinas specifically, Fayetteville, North Carolina, 53. Wilmington, 48, Greenville, North Carolina, 46, Hickory, 53, Gastonia, 55, Spartanburg, 55, Rock Hill area, mid-50s, Florence, South Carolina, 56, Georgetown area, lower 50s. The frost advisory for coastal North Carolina tonight means that if you have tender plants outside, bring them in or cover them. Temperatures dropping to 35 degrees along the coast this late in March is unusual, and it could catch gardeners off guard. In the Tennessee Valley, Nashville, 65, Murfreesboro, 66, Clarksville, 65, Cookeville, 64, Crossville area, upper 50s, Chattanooga, 69, Cleveland, Tennessee, 69, Kingsport, 64, Johnson City area, lower 60s, Jackson, Tennessee area, upper 60s, Memphis, 64. These areas are going to see pleasant weather through Thursday morning, but keep your eye on the afternoon. The severe weather risk extends into portions of Tennessee, particularly the western half of the state. Memphis and Nashville should monitor conditions closely Thursday afternoon and evening. Now, I want to talk about something that does not get enough attention during these pattern changes, the agricultural impact. We have farmers and ranchers across the plains who are dealing with an impossible situation right now. The extreme heat is accelerating evaporation, which is worsening the already severe drought conditions across the western plains and into the mountain west. Pastures that should be greening up are instead drying out and turning into tinder. Cattle operations are struggling with water supplies. Wheat crops across Kansas and Oklahoma, which are in a critical growth phase right now, are being stressed by temperatures 30 degrees above what they should be experiencing. And then, on the other side of the coin, the flash flooding threat on Thursday could dump 2 to 4 inches of rain on soil that is too hard to absorb it. Instead of replenishing groundwater, that rain is going to run off, potentially causing erosion and flooding without actually solving the underlying drought. It is a cruel irony of extreme weather. You can be in a drought and still get flooded. Let me give you a few more cities in the Great Plains and mountain regions. Hays, Kansas, 77. Dodge City, 78. Garden City, 77. Salina, 73. Manhattan, Kansas, 74. Emporia, 70. Junction City, 76. Liberal area, upper 70s. Great Bend area, mid-70s. All of these Kansas cities are going to be on the warm side of the front Thursday, feeding moisture and energy into the storm system. In Nebraska, beyond the cities I already mentioned, Grand Island, 72, Kearney, 76, Hastings area, lower 70s, Scottsbluff, 80, McCook area, upper 70s, Norfolk area, mid-60s, Fremont area, lower 60s. These Nebraska cities, particularly in the western half of the state, need to be most vigilant about fire danger Wednesday. The combination of extreme heat, low humidity, and high winds creates conditions where a single spark from a vehicle, a piece of farm equipment, a downed power line can ignite a wildfire that moves faster than you can drive. South Dakota, Sioux Falls, 60, Pierre, 65, Mitchell area, upper 50s, Watertown area, mid-50s, Brookings, 56, Huron area, upper 50s. The warmth surging into South Dakota is impressive for late March, but it comes with strings attached. The fire weather watches in the southwestern part of the state are serious, and when the cold front arrives Friday, it will feel like someone flipped a switch. North Dakota, Bismarck, 54, Fargo, 52, Grand Forks, 46, Minot, 50, Dickinson, 63, Williston, 50. The western half of North Dakota is significantly warmer than the eastern half today, and that trend continues through Wednesday. Dickinson at 63 degrees in late March is noteworthy, and tomorrow ISIA's numbers will be even more impressive. I also want to circle back to the Pacific Northwest storm because it deserves more attention. The atmospheric river currently targeting the region is not a major event by Pacific Northwest standards, but it is still going to produce significant mountain snow and gusty conditions. The integrated vapor transport values are running up to 800, which indicates a substantial moisture plume. The rain and snow showers will continue through Washington and parts of northern Oregon through Wednesday and into Wednesday night. For those of you in western Washington and Oregon who might be thinking about mountain travel this week, be aware that Stevens Pass on US Route 2 will be affected by the winter weather advisory. Snow levels will be around 2,000 feet, with accumulations of a few inches at pass level and up to 12 inches above 4,000 feet. I would check road conditions before heading out, especially Wednesday and Wednesday night. By Thursday, conditions should improve markedly in the Pacific Northwest as the system moves through. Now, here is something fascinating that I think weather enthusiasts will appreciate. If you look up at the sky tonight in the eastern half of the country where skies are clear, the constellation Orion is visible in the southwest sky during the evening hours. Just below the belt, you can spot the Orion Nebula. It is the one deep sky object that is visible to the unaided eye without needing a star chart, though it looks much better through binoculars. And there is a full moon coming up later next week on Thursday. We also had a coronal mass ejection from the sun yesterday. It was not very strong, and it appears that part of it will graze Earth on Thursday night, providing a very minor bump in aurora activity. So, if you are in the northern tier states and happen to be up late Thursday night, you might catch a faint glow of the northern lights between the clouds. That would be quite a sight. Let me give you one final batch of cities to make sure we have truly comprehensive coverage. In the Mountain West, Flagstaff, Arizona, 75 degrees and sunny. Sedona, 84. Prescott, 83. Sierra Vista, 89. Yuma, 93. These Arizona cities outside of the Phoenix metro area are all running well above normal. Even Flagstaff, which sits at nearly 7,000 feet elevation, is touching 75 degrees in late March. St. George, Utah, 92. Moab, 85. Provo, 82. Ogden, 76. Logan area, lower 70s. The Utah corridor from St. George to Ogden is baking under the same ridge of high pressure that is cooking the desert southwest. In New Mexico, Albuquerque, 86. Santa Fe, 82. Las Cruces, 88. Roswell, 93. Carlsbad area, upper 80s. Hobbs, 91. Clovis, 89. Farmington, 82. These are summer-like temperatures in a state that should still be shaking off the last chill of winter. Montana, Billings, 70. Great Falls, 64. Missoula, 62. Helena, 67. Bozeman, 67. Kalispell is the outlier at 45 with light rain thanks to the incoming Pacific moisture. Butte, 57. Miles City area, upper 60s. Montana is splitting between the warm, dry conditions in the east and the cooler, wetter pattern arriving from the Pacific in the west. Wyoming, Casper, 74. Cheyenne, 72. Sheridan area, lower 60s. Cody area, mid-60s. Jackson, 58. Riverton, 71. Rock Springs, 71. Lander area, upper 60s. The fire weather watches in Wyoming are no joke. The Wind River Mountains region is particularly vulnerable. Fuels are critically dry, and the wind channeling through the mountain passes can turn a small fire into a major incident in minutes. Idaho. Boise, 74. Idaho Falls, 68. Twin Falls area, lower 70s. Pocatello, 71. Nampa, 73. Coeur d'Alene, 48 with rain. Moscow, 54 with light rain. The northern panhandle of Idaho is getting wetter while the southern half enjoys warm, dry conditions. That divide will sharpen as the Pacific storm moves through. And finally, let me touch on Hawaii for those of you watching from the islands. Honolulu, 78 with scattered clouds. Kailua Kona, 84 with passing clouds. Hilo, 75 and cloudy. Maui, 78 with scattered clouds. Hawaii is doing what Hawaii does, offering consistently pleasant weather while the mainland goes through meteorological chaos. All right, that is truly the comprehensive breakdown I promised you. More than 270 cities covered, hour-by-hour severe weather timing for Thursday, fire danger specifics for Wednesday, the massive April pattern flip explained in detail, and a look ahead at what could be an extended severe weather season starting next week. Do not forget the most important takeaways. If you are in the fire danger zone Wednesday, have your evacuation plan ready. If you are in the severe weather zone Thursday, have multiple ways to receive alerts that will wake you up at night. And if you are anywhere in the central United States, start paying very close attention to forecasts beginning April 1st because the atmosphere is about to shift into a very active pattern. Comment below with your city and what the weather is doing right now where you are. I read every single comment and it helps me know which areas need the most coverage in upcoming videos. Share this with anyone you know in the affected areas, and make sure you are here for the next video because the April pattern setup I am about to break down might be the most consequential weather story of the entire spring season. The early signals are strong, the model agreement is high, and I think you are going to want to hear what is coming. Now, before I truly sign off, let me address a few things that some of you might be wondering about based on past videos. Some of you in the Great Lakes region have been asking about lake effect snow potential with these cold shots, and the answer is yes. When Friday's cold front blasts through, there is potential for some lake-enhanced precipitation, especially off Lake Michigan and Lake Erie. The lakes are still relatively cold, but the contrast between the lake surface temperatures and the incoming Arctic air could be enough to produce some snow showers along the downwind shores. Cities like Grand Rapids, Muskegon, South Bend, and Buffalo could see some flurries or light snow showers Friday night into Saturday. It will not be a major event, but if you are driving along the lakeshore, be ready for reduced visibility in spots. Some of you in the Mid-Atlantic have been asking about the cherry blossoms in Washington, D.C. I know this sounds like a small thing, but it matters to a lot of people who plan trips around peak bloom. The warm spell earlier this month pushed the blossoms into early bloom, and this week has continued mild weather in the D.C. area, with temperatures in the upper 40s to low 50s, should keep things looking beautiful through the end of March. However, if you are planning to visit, be aware that Friday's temperature drop could stress the blossoms. Anything below 32 degrees can damage them. Washington, D.C. is not expected to drop that low, but areas in the Virginia and Maryland suburbs could get close. So if you are heading to the tidal basin this weekend, go sooner rather than later. For those of you in the Tornado Alley states, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska, I want to emphasize something about the upcoming April pattern. The kind of setup we are looking at, with a deep trough in the west and rich Gulf moisture streaming north, is the classic recipe for significant tornado outbreaks. I am not saying that is going to happen. I am saying the ingredients are going to be present. And when the ingredients are present, it only takes one particularly potent disturbance to set off a major event. This is the time of year to review your tornado safety plan. Know the difference between a watch and a warning. A watch means conditions are favorable for tornadoes. A warning means a tornado has been spotted or indicated by radar and you need to take shelter immediately. If you have a basement, that is your best option. If you do not, an interior room on the lowest floor away from windows is the next best thing. A closet, a bathroom, or a hallway in the center of your home. Put shoes on, grab a helmet if you have one, and protect your head and neck. I also want to give a special shout out to our viewers who work in emergency management, first responders, storm spotters, and everyone in the National Weather Service offices across the country. You are heading into what looks like a very busy stretch. The work you do saves lives every single day, and the forecasts you produce are the backbone of public safety during severe weather events. For the rest of us, the best way to support their work is to take the warnings seriously, follow instructions, and not put ourselves in unnecessary danger. Speaking of unnecessary danger, I know storm chasing season is ramping up. If you are an experienced chaser with proper training and equipment, be safe out there. If you are thinking about going out for the first time because you saw it in a movie or on social media, please reconsider. Storm chasing without proper training is extremely dangerous. You can end up in the path of a tornado, trapped in flash flooding, or causing traffic hazards that put other people at risk. Leave it to the professionals and the trained spotters who know what they are doing. All right, one truly final thing. I have been getting a lot of questions about whether this spring's extreme heat in the West is going to affect summer weather patterns. And while it is too early to make specific summer forecasts, I can tell you that the drought conditions currently entrenched across the western plains and the Mountain West are going to have cascading effects. Dry soil heats up faster than moist soil, which can amplify heat waves. Low water levels in reservoirs affect water availability for agriculture and cities. And critically, dry vegetation means fire season could start earlier and burn longer than average. These are not scare tactics. These are physical realities of the situation on the ground right now. We are going to be tracking all of this through the spring and into the summer. Every video, I am going to give you the latest data, the latest model runs, and the most accurate city-by-city breakdown I can produce. That is my commitment to you. So here is my ask. If you have made it this far in the video, you are clearly someone who takes weather seriously. You care about being prepared. You care about your family's safety. Hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Turn on the notification bell so you get alerted the moment I drop the next forecast. And most importantly, share this video with someone who lives in the affected areas. A text to your mom in Indiana, a share with your buddy in Oklahoma, a link to your college kid in Illinois. The more people who are informed and prepared, the fewer people who get caught off guard when severe weather strikes. Thank you for staying with me through this comprehensive breakdown. I know it was a marathon, not a sprint. But when the atmosphere is doing what it is doing right now, with record heat, critical fire danger, severe thunderstorm outbreaks, and a looming pattern flip all happening simultaneously, you deserve to have every detail at your fingertips. Drop your city in the comments. Tell me what the weather looks like out your window. And get ready, because what is coming in April could define the severe weather season for years to come. The models are locked in, the signals are clear, and I will be right here to walk you through